I installed the camera because things in my house kept moving. Nothing dramatic. The kitchen cabinet would be open when I knew I'd closed it. The front door would sometimes be unlocked. Once I came home and found the television on, I blamed myself. I figured I was tired. Then I noticed something else. My bedroom window was unlocked. I live alone. That's when I started getting nervous. So I bought a small security camera and put it on the dresser facing my bed. The first few nights, nothing happened. Then, one morning, I woke up feeling exhausted. I checked the footage. At first, everything looked normal. I was asleep, the room was dark. Then, at 3:41 a.m., I sat up. I stared straight ahead. Then I got out of bed. I walked towards the camera. I stood there for almost 5 minutes. I didn't move. Then I walked out of the room. I watched it twice. I don't remember doing any of it. I assumed I must have been sleepwalking. Then I noticed something. The camera showed me walking away from the bed, but there was still someone lying underneath the blankets. I paused the video. My heart started racing. I zoomed in. There was definitely a person in my bed. I checked the timestamp. 3:47 a.m. I was standing in the hallway. Someone was sleeping in my bed. I ran upstairs. The bed was empty. I checked the entire house. Nobody was there. I called the police. They searched the house and found nothing. The officer suggested I might have been sleepwalking and somehow misinterpreted the footage. But I knew what I'd seen. That night, I moved the camera. I put it in the hallway. I wanted to see if I was walking around again. At 3:41, the camera activated. I watched the footage the next morning. I walked out of my bedroom. I stopped in the hallway. Then I looked directly at the camera. And behind me, my bedroom door slowly opened. I watched myself turn around. Then the footage cut out. The next morning, I checked my bedroom. There were fingerprints on the inside of the door. They weren't mine. I moved out that weekend. I never found out who was in my bed, and I never figured out why the camera kept showing things that weren't physically there. But I still have the footage, and sometimes I wonder if the person in that bed was supposed to be me. The alert came through at 4:16 a.m. Motion detected. I was half asleep when I opened the camera app. Someone was standing in my driveway. I couldn't see their face. They were facing away from the camera. I zoomed in. They were wearing a gray hoodie, black pants, white shoes. I then looked down at what I was wearing. Gray hoodie, black pants, white shoes. I immediately sat up. I called my husband. He was working overnight. He answered after a few rings. I asked him if he'd come home. He said no. I told him about the camera. He said, "Don't go outside." I didn't intend to. I kept watching. The person in the driveway stood completely still. Then they turned towards my house. Slowly. They started walking toward the front door. I watched the camera feed. Step, step, step. Then they stopped, right beneath the camera. I couldn't see their face, just the top of their head. Then they raised one hand and waved. I backed away from the window. My husband told me to call the police. I did. While I was talking to the dispatcher, the camera feed froze. Then it came back. The driveway was empty. The police arrived a few minutes later. They searched the house. Nothing. No footprints, no person, no sign anyone had been there. I showed the officer the recording. He watched it several times. Then he asked, "What time was this?" I told him. He looked confused. He said the camera's internal clock was 12 minutes behind. I thought maybe that explained it. Then he asked what I'd been wearing. I told him. He looked at the video, then at me. He didn't say anything. That night, I checked the footage again. There was something I hadn't noticed. The person wasn't wearing my clothes. They were wearing the clothes I had worn the previous day. Same hoodie, same pants, same shoes. I had thrown the clothes into the laundry basket. I checked. They were still there. I never saw the person again. But every few weeks, my camera sends me a motion alert at exactly 4:16 a.m. There's never anything in the driveway, just one frame of static. And in that static, I can sometimes make out the outline of someone standing there. The first alert came at 3:12 a.m. I checked the camera. Nothing. I assumed it was an animal. The next night, 3:12. Another alert. Again, nothing. Then I noticed something. There was movement at the edge of the frame. A person. I couldn't see their face, though. I watched the recording. They walked past my house. Every night. Same time. Same direction. I called the police. They told me there was no evidence anyone was trespassing. So I decided to stay awake. At 3:10, I sat beside the window. At 3:12, the camera sent an alert. I opened the app. The person was there. I looked outside. Nothing. I looked back at the screen. The person was walking toward the camera. Closer. Closer. Then they stopped. They looked directly into the camera. I could see their face. It was mine. I dropped my phone. The camera feed continued. The person walked up to my front door, then disappeared. The next morning, I checked the recording. The footage showed me standing inside my bedroom, watching the window, but the timestamp said I was outside.